Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now cover when the void meets infinity, or the generation of Akasha and non-dual light. In many ways, this represents the pinnacle or end of the 60 Skills coursework. The ability to generate Akasha and non-dual light on your own is the sign of a fully adult human being in terms of metaphysics. It is your pass into the great beyond. It is literally the end of the beginning. This course will cover three primary methods. One, projection into light, where you merge with the non-dual light. Two, the drawdown or magic circle method, where you draw Akasha and non-dual light down around you. And three, Akasha and non-dual light breathing, which is a walking technique that allows you to utilize these energies in the real world. If you can do these three things, you can unlock and do anything in metaphysics, magic, and meditation. There is literally no limit to what you can do yogically. You will have all of the tools you need from this point onward. This final lesson will consist of a mental level transmission into Akasha and non-dual light. If you follow the methods within 60 Skills, you will be able to do this on your own within a year to 18 months. I have seen it happen in as little as 6 weeks. So let us begin with where the void meets infinity. Welcome to 60 Skills. I will now discuss the requirements of where the void meets infinity. To engage in this lesson as a transmission, there are in fact none. Anyone can do this. However, if you wish to be able to conduct this technique on your own to its logical conclusion, you will need to be able to perform pore breathing, astral energy generation, mental energy generation, the three releases, single point concentration, 3-point concentration with the elements as Kabbalah as well. So keep in mind, this represents the pinnacle of the 60 Skills program. Now, that being said, I have seen people learn how to do all of this very quickly. A year to 18 months is most common. However, I have had a student master this material in 6 weeks. Additionally, the ability to perform the electric and magnetic lines of force is greatly helpful, but not entirely necessary. So, again, if you wish to partake of this as a transmission at the mental level, anyone can do this. Performance of these techniques on your own will require a fair amount of effort. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss what is Akasha. As has been mentioned various points in time in this course, Akasha is quite literally the power of the void. It is that supreme emptiness out of which the one and the zero, the yin and the yang, the electric and magnetic, and by virtue of that, the 10,000 things all spring. It is that state of primordial chaos that comes after pure consciousness, but before differentiation into the masculine and feminine. As such, this is an extremely important state. It is also the bridge or the last vast emptiness to cross before you encounter complete awareness, mind, or what some people would refer to as God. For purposes of this program, we will refer to it as non-dual light. Additionally, Akasha is the great emptiness out of which everything else can be pulled. And as a practicing metaphysician, or hermeticist, or magician, this is extremely important. When you are dealing with the chain of manifestation of bringing things into form, one of the primary limitations is a lack of elemental energy or other energies to work with. You can actually pull all of these to one degree or another out of the void. This skirts around the issue of having to work with what is available in the ambient environment around you. As a practical method, I challenge anybody to pull much fire energy out of a raging storm by a seafront. Akasha, however, does, in theory at least, make this possible. Now, your ability to project Akasha and those things into the real world is highly contingent upon how much you have done to prepare your body to act as a vehicle of transmission. On the other hand, if you're interested in the enlightenment path or the elevation of energy from the more gross to the non-dual light state, the ability to access Akasha does not take much in terms of physical preparation. Contrary to popular belief, it does take some. The monk walk from Theravada Buddhism's forest walk tradition is a good example of this. But getting back to our main point, Akasha is that state of complete emptiness and ultimate chaos that exists directly after pure consciousness, but before form has set in. So because of this, ideally it will be worked with an equal measure with non-dual light. As a warning to my fellow magicians out there who were very interested in the path of manifestation, keep in mind that Akasha allows you to bend the rules of reality a little bit. Reality, in turn, does not like this. So if you spend most of your time working with Akasha and none of your time working with non-dual light, when you die, you have to pay for this. This is one of the reasons why many traditions warn against the dangers of pursuing psychic powers or magic into and of itself. That said, most of these are highly overstated. Additionally, it's not a one-to-one swap either. The important part is that somewhere along the way, you have achieved that enlightenment state. And herein lies the danger of pursuing magic for the sake of magic. If you're really interested in the chain of manifestation, frequently people never get around to doing the enlightenment path work. The result of which is when you die and come back here, when you reincarnate, you have to do all of the work over again, having performed very little in terms of elevating your true spirit. So a smart man would take the approach of pursuing enlightenment first and then working on magic later. This is in fact what Buddha and what most of the other great saints did as well. But we will get into that in a moment. The bottom line and the most important thing to keep in mind is that Akasha is the stepping stone to complete reality. It is also that thing out of which everything else can be derived. However, it should not be a goal unto itself. So this produces a very interesting conundrum. Exercises like Akasha non-dual light breathing, however, provide us an answer to that. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. What is non-dual light? Non-dual light, true mind, complete reality, the Buddha mind, nirvana, some would say God. For the purposes of this course, we will refer to this as non-dual light. It is the state of complete awareness that predates emptiness and predates form. It can only be defined by what it is not. Since the dawn of mankind, the sages and saints have been arguing over how to exactly define non-dual light. To my understanding, no one has succeeded. As such, I certainly have nothing to add to the argument. Merely understand that non-dual light is something that cannot be positively defined. It can only be defined by what it is not. As such, it is the highest form of development in yogic circles. It is a literal return to the source. Contrary to popular belief, this does not require decades to achieve. All of my students have had experiences utilizing the methods we teach in 60 Skills with non-dual light within a year to 18 months of practice. One exceptional individual achieved this within 6 weeks. But he was very special and had done a lot of work before he met me. And again, keep in mind, none of this is mine. None of this is sacrament. None of this is anything particularly special. Human beings, from what I have gathered after having done this for 30 years, are in fact hardwired to experience divinity. Others would disagree with this viewpoint, but that is what my experience has shown me during this time. Understand, frequently the biggest obstacle to achieving this state is 1, disbelief in the fact that it exists at all, and 2, a lack of access to the proper technology. If you are doing the 60 Skills coursework from its inception, you do not have this problem with a lack of technology. The rest of this I cannot help you with. But getting back to our main point. Non-dual light is that thing that exists before form and before the void. It is pure consciousness. What happens there appears to be very important, even if it cannot actually be defined by most people experiencing it, or shall we say, anybody experiencing it. So what I can tell you is that practice of these Akasha and non-dual light techniques and all the accompanying work it takes to get there, in my experience, is the fastest way to have this experience. Keep in mind, a very large percentage of practitioners, once they experience the non-dual light state, stop practicing. They stop practicing because, quite simply, the question they didn't even know they needed answered is now answered. This is normal. Only other people, after having achieved this, decide that they want to pursue metaphysics, magic, or the chain of manifestation. Because the simple fact of the matter is, if you have all of the skills and personal attributes required to get to the non-dual light state, the fact of the matter is, in the modern world, there is literally nothing you cannot do. There is nothing you cannot achieve. There is nothing you are incapable of, or incapable of, as is properly termed. So the reality is, in a modern society, once you understand the true nature of divinity and have stood in the presence of it, you're free to do whatever you want. And the modern world's a pretty nice place, with lots of things to do that have far greater terrestrial awards or rewards than practicing magic does. And since the practice of magic is largely about the chain of manifestation, once you've gotten past the whole path of the magician part, where you experience your true nature, i.e. enlightenment, well, if you want to go out and do physical things, being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a CPA, a private business owner, or simply someone who has a loving family, is generally far more rewarding for far less effort. So keep in mind what non-dual light is and what it is not. It is the ultimate goal of the practice of metaphysics, meditation, yoga, and yes, even magic. That said, it has virtually no application in the real world, or the physical or vital or material world, as it is better said, because it is so refined. However, it is this power of consciousness, or specifically consciousness itself, that gives all of the experiences we have in the material world meaning. An interesting conundrum for something that cannot actually be defined. But that is as close to the nature of non-dual light as I care to explain or even have the ability. Everything else involving non-dual light is something you as a practitioner must determine on your own. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss projecting into light. Projecting into light represents one method for achieving the path of enlightenment. Keep in mind, there are many. This is merely one that works. For purposes of this program, the method employed will be to establish equilibrium using banding of the 4 elements in the body. followed by pore breathing vital energy, followed by pore breathing astral energy, followed by generating mental energy. Then once this is done, you will place your consciousness above the head. You will release time and release space simultaneously. That is, generate both astral and mental level energy at the same time at the area above the head. At this point, Akasha will generate. Once Akasha is generated, you will fill all the subtle bodies with Akasha, clear the space around you, and then call upon non-dual light. At this point in time, your consciousness will project into this state of complete awareness. That is the mental level transmission that will be given today. With practice, you can do this on your own, and the experience will be quite profound. There are a couple of things to keep in mind regarding this. The application of Akasha to most human beings is equivalent to Shaktipat. If this is not counterbalanced with non-dual light, the person's spirit will grab on to any energy around it and incorporate this. This is unhealthy. You have to apply non-dual light to anybody experiencing Akasha, or they become extremely ungrounded. The application of non-dual light, on the other hand, resynchronizes them with their life's purpose, or what we refer to as the path of the magician. For this reason, it is highly important that you experience projection into light before utilizing the magic circle method, which is in fact part of the chain of manifestation. Now that said, projection into light, when it is done initially, will be done as an initiation. This is not quite the same thing as experiencing this on your own. When this happens, you will truly understand the meaning of non-dual light. It is profound. And again, I have never met anybody who could define exactly what this is. Forever afterwards, this will be your high-end practice of projecting into light. Depending upon what you are working on, particularly if you are interested in the chain of manifestation, this may be a very minority of your day-to-day practice, and may not even be something you work with every day. But keep in mind, non-dual light becomes dual as it comes down into the real world, or material world. For this reason, projection into light is the safest way to work with and experience intelligences, entities, or what we call spirits. Because when you project into light, you encounter their higher forms on the way up. When you engage the chain of manifestation and bring that non-dual light down into the mental, astral, and then vital or material worlds, things take on their dual nature. Those entities in turn take on a dual nature as well. And this is important to keep in mind because this is where you run into deal making and issues with the egregores that are built up around these things. So what you experience as the non-dual light version of something can often be radically different than its astral or more dualistic appearance. This is also the reason why you can frequently run into entities that at a very high level represent several different entities at a very low level. It is simply one of the conundrums of consciousness that consciousness can exist in multiple places at the same time, particularly as it diverges down into the more dualistic worlds around us. This is not to say these things are bad, it's just merely an observation that has to be kept in mind. Now, because non-dual light is so refined, it has no power associated with it. So for the most part, experiencing things in their higher form is only useful for enlightenment or information purposes. The process of getting things done, on the other hand, is very definitely a mental, astral, and vital or material matter. So keep in mind the path of enlightenment in this system, in the 60-skills system, in the system of Franz Barden's initiation into Hermetics, is best defined by the projection into light method. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. I will now discuss Akasha and non-dual light, the magic circle, or the bringing down of non-dual light and Akasha into the physical. This is largely used for the chain of manifestation, for when you literally want to make magic or make things happen. Most people only learn how to do this into the mid-astral range, and this is effective, as we have already discussed in coursework in this system, that anything manifested strongly enough at the astral level, assuming it is in fact physically possible and backed by the right amount of effort in the material world, will manifest. So this makes sense. However, this does require a bit more of an elaboration as to why you would want to do this. So here we go. As has been stated, as you bring Akasha and non-dual light down into the physical, they become progressively more dual. In their purest representation, non-dual light becomes mental energy, becomes astral energy, becomes vital or material energy. However, as has already been discussed, Akasha is a somewhat dissolving force, and Akasha in and of itself is the thing out of which everything else can be pulled. So Akasha as well has mental, astral, and vital or material manifestations. That said, these things are what generate the elements and all of the other energies available in the phenomenal world. As such, being able to bring non-dual light and Akasha down into the physical is very, very important. One of the primary uses for this is for acts of evocation, or the summoning and binding of entities, intelligences, and spirits into the physical world. Many people ask why you would want to do this. Well, the simple fact of the matter is these entities are very useful, and whole schools of ritual magic are formed around this topic of utilizing the circle and the triangle for this purpose. The wisdom of that and the karmic expense, if you will, of engaging in this is a separate issue entirely. However, if you need to manifest energies or things, the magic circle method is the premier method for doing this. As such, it will be discussed in this method. When you are doing this, what you will do is you will generate the elements in the four corners. You will generate elemental equilibrium, vital or pore breathe, astral energy, mental energy. Go to the space above your head, generate mental energy and astral energy at the same time, bring Akasha into form, and then fill the body with Akasha, opening all the gates. Then you will generate non-dual light in the sphere above your head, and this time, instead of projecting up into it, you will stream that energy down into the world around you. Out of this energy, you can then generate whatever it is you need to work with. If you need to generate more fire energy, a Kabbalistic letter, a planetary energy, what have you, this is the way to do that. Additionally, you will want to bring non-dual light down into the material world, into your circle around you, for a minimum of 10 minutes before engaging in evocation, invocation, or working with spirits. The reason for this is simple. This way, when the spirit sees you, it sees more of your non-dual form than anything else. As a result, it tends to be far more friendly to you. That said, having access to Akasha also gives you the stick, because by summoning Akasha into the area around you, you can dissolve the subtle body that entity forms to engage this world with. Entities don't like this. As a result, they tend to be very respectful and tend not to browbeat a practitioner. So there are a variety of reasons to engage in the magic circle method, both from the very practical to the very protective and to the benign. There are also less benign reasons, but those will not be discussed here or instructed upon. So keep in mind, if you're interested in the chain of manifestation, or literally making magic, the magic circle method will be a very big part of your life. Also keep in mind that the non-dual light brought down into the material world is now dual. So its representation and what you get from it will have a lot to do with the polarity of your personality and your behaviors. This is the reason why engaging in ennoblement of behavior and losing your bad habits becomes important. Because that non-dual light reflects off of everything that is within you. If you have bad habits, it's going to reflect off of that, and that's the kind of energy that is going to be generated around you. In turn, and this is the way karma actually works, that vibratory state that the light bounces off of is what you end up attracting. Which is the reason why, if you have a lot of bad habits, you tend to attract people and energy that have a lot of bad habits. That is not to say you will be punished for this. It doesn't really work that way. What it is to say is that the worse your bad habits are, and the more of that kind of energy or person you attract to you, the better the odds are that something bad will happen. This is one of the reasons why high-level practitioners tend to be incredibly boring people when looked at from the outside. The simple fact of the matter is they haven't shed their bad habits because they care. They've shed their bad habits because those bad habits complicate their practice. And ultimately, their practice is what is most important to them. This is an odd point that most people do not understand. However, does it really matter to the person on the receiving end? If someone ends up being a loving and doting father who intrinsically takes care of his family at every turn, does it matter really what the ultimate motivation for that is? The fact of the matter is, to the person receiving that benevolent behavior, it does not. So again, keep in mind, you can run all of the non-dual light you want down into the physical, but if you have made no effort to temper your personality and in general clean up your act, you're still going to get things that reflect off of that are not very nice. It is just the nature of reality. This is how things work. So, that describes the magic circle method, and that describes the primary method by which magic in the material worlds occurs. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. What is Akasha and non-dual light breathing, or the in and out method? This method is a method by which a practitioner generates Akasha on the inhalation and projects non-dual light on the exhalation. This has a variety of purposes. First of which, it allows a practitioner to work with these energies in harmony while they're moving or engaging in other physical activity. This opens the door to working with things like healing or martial arts or working magic or working with ingenuity. That said, it also provides a very important mechanism by which you can counterbalance the amount of Akasha generated and utilized with the amount of non-dual light utilized. This is important. As has been mentioned earlier, if you only spend your life generating Akasha and never work with non-dual light, you're going to get in trouble in the end. That said, this is not a one-for-one proposition. You simply need to spend a fair amount of time working with non-dual light, because the reality is Akasha is useful as a tool out of which you can pull all of the other things. So, something to keep in mind. In this exercise, you will be breathing in Akasha on the inhalation and exhaling non-dual light on the exhalation. This will be the dualistic form of non-dual light for the most part, as it is brought down through the body, and the more dualistic form of Akasha. These are both slightly oxymoronic, or words that make no sense, but they will make sense in terms of experience and practice when you can do this. This also allows you to work the fascia and ligaments and tendons in the body by doing this while utilizing the walking techniques or the resistance techniques or the electric and magnetic lines of force. as a general thing, Akasha is slightly more magnetic, and as a general thing, non-dual light is slightly more electric in its more physical manifestations. Ultimately, neither of these are either one, but for purposes of training them in the here and now, this is important to keep in mind. So this technique, or Akasha and non-dual light breathing, will be something you can spend a lot of time doing. The only real warning I can give about this is that if you spend a lot of time breathing Akasha in and out of your solar plexus or astral body, at the end of the day you end up caring about nothing. If you spend all of your time generating light, non-dual light at the level above the head, you end up becoming a saint. And keep in mind, being a saint is not the pop culture version of that thing. You should look at some more historical examples on the life of saints, or the lives of saints, to understand what that means. So, also on a physical level, the non-dual light tempers the draining effect of the Akasha, and the Akasha tempers the overheating effect associated with non-dual light. So there are very practical reasons for doing all of this as well. These again are not one-for-one transmissions between the two, but it's close enough for government work, as some people like to say, and certainly for our purposes here. So to sum up again, the Akasha and non-dual light breathing techniques will be a technique by which you can inhale Akasha, exhale non-dual light, and largely do it at the near astral or physical level. This allows you to work with these forces in the world around you without having to set up a magic circle and negatively influencing those around you. Additionally, a final benefit of this is if another untrained human being gets caught up in the wake of your Akasha and non-dual light, doing this results in whatever Akasha they've been exposed to being reinforced by non-dual light, which puts them back in line with their life's purpose. Finally, I will caution people here who treat this as a newfound toy that if you utilize Akasha on another human being, you own the karma for that and for whatever happens to them, both good and bad. As a result, most people who are wise about the matter will choose to keep this to themselves unless it is a student or another matter of great import or a human being to which they have a great deal of connection. That also means that if you're going to go utilizing this on people, you need to do so with their free will in mind, because a violation of their free will in fact cost you the most. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss what is enlightenment. What is enlightenment? This is a topic that has been plaguing the sages and saints throughout recorded history, and in all likelihood for a very long period of time before that as well. The truth of the matter is, complete immersion into non-dual light, nirvana, or God, is something that cannot be positively defined. It can only be defined by what it is not. And therein lies the problem in defining what is enlightenment. Many different standards exist regarding this. However, 60 Skills is not running a temple complex. It is not running a large religious organization. There is no need to determine a pecking order amongst who is most enlightened so we can figure out who the next abbot is going to be who should run the entire show. A very basic definition of this is someone who has experienced Akasha and non-dual light, or really just non-dual light. Anyone who's gone through Kundalini awakening via whatever mechanism or Akasha awakening has had this experience, even if they don't realize it. So the experience of non-dual light is a good starter for defining what is enlightenment. Also, as a practical matter, there are certain physical cues that will occur once someone has been through this process. The enlightenment process is not just mental or cerebral, it is also physical. This is something that frequently gets left out. I will not spoil for the group of you what exactly that means. Suffice to say that when you finally do have the experience, you simply will not be the same person you were beforehand. This is again one of the hallmarks of this experience. In many ways, it is like dying. Some argue that in fact to go through this experience, you have to at least temporarily in fact die. I am agnostic as to the series of events. That said, understand there will be a variety of physical changes that accompany going through the experience of non-dual light. They are real and they are not merely figments of your imagination. I truly wish you enjoy the ride. For some of us, it was more pleasant than for others. So keep in mind, enlightenment per se can only be defined by what it is not. The experience of Akasha awakening and the subsequent state of non-dual light that lies on the other side are a good jumping off point. Also keep in mind that is precisely what this is. It is a jumping off point to your experience in life in a greater reality. This is not something to be lorded over other people or to feel superior about. It is a natural state of affairs that you as a human being are hardwired to experience. This is important to understand. Make no mistake, as Felix Dennis would say, you will have your barmy state after you have this experience. It is natural. Everyone goes through it. Everyone does stupid things, and smart people get over it as quickly as possible. Or should I say, wise people get over it as quickly as possible. And the process of doing that is largely what results in wisdom, even if it is not a particularly enjoyable experience. So I wish all of you the best on your adventures with enlightenment, because I know it certainly changed my life in many ways that I could not foresee. Let us begin.